In the panel, we have with us Aditi Srivastava from The Capable, who will be moderating this panel discussion. We also have Vijayendra Singh, who is the COO, Apollo 24/7. We have Abhishek Ramanathan, who is the CEO, NUA, women's wellness brand. We also have Shubhadev Banerjee, who is the Vice President Marketing Services in ITC. And we have Pratik Gupta, Global Head Digital and E-commerce, Marico. I'll not take much time and I'll hand it over to Aditi, handing it over. Thanks.
Thank you so much. First up, I hope everybody is doing well, and I hope everybody is vaccinated, hopefully, and so are your loved ones. Just quick introduction. My name is Aditi. I write for the Cap Table. It is a new subscription-based platform. We are a small team of three writers, and we work together at the Economic Times together. At the cap table, we primarily focus on technology, new economy businesses, and this is a product which is backed by your story. I particularly write about consumer internet, brands, logistics, and most importantly, trends that are sort of shaping up the tech ecosystem. And today's topic is of very particular interest to me because as a reporter, it brings together multiple facets from organized retail to technology to supply chain to new age brands all under one roof. So I would just like to jump right in and want to sort of open up the panel and just set a little bit of a context. Um, what we're going to discuss today is largely how D2C brands are ensuring a superior delivery experience. And we had some amazing insights from Abhishek and Kunal. Both of them have been around in the e-commerce space for the last 8 to 10 years at least. Kunal has, and seen multiple facets of how the new economy has developed, and it was super helpful to get his insights on the space. But in the last 1 year, like a lot has suddenly changed. Like direct to consumer has slowly and steadily become almost like a new normal. And with the retail slowdown, I'm just seeing like so many more people spending so much more time online browsing. There's a larger intent, according to me, for consumers to even experiment with newer brands. And I think that's typically something that was difficult to do in an offline setting, which was dominated by large brands, but now it seems like it's a level playing field. Um, so just want to understand, I would like to open the panel with Pratik and from Mariko, and would love to understand, as the COVID pandemic hit, how did a large brand like yours chalk out its distribution strategy? Like, especially if you can tell us how you deploy tech and give us a little bit of examples, that would be super helpful for our listeners. Is Pratik around?
Thank you, Aditi. Thanks, everyone. Great to be here with all of you. And so I think, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Am I audible?
Yeah, Pratik, you are.
Yeah, I think there seems to be a delay. So please stop me. Yeah, sure. So yeah, I got the question. So broadly, see, I'll break break this down into, and without without going into a broader understanding of this, because we all are experts in this space. I think what we broadly at Marico have done, in the last 2.5 years, especially when COVID hit us, the e-commerce penetration has come from anywhere from a 2% or 2.5% to now a double-digit number in terms of e-com plus direct to consumer that we do. And this really, when the COVID hit us, there were a couple of problems and opportunities that we saw. These were definitely in the space of course, availability of products and availability of our distribution system, sales system, but also a lot of opportunity in terms of the changing way in, the way people are shopping, people are consuming products. So broadly three aspects where we transformed the things digitally. One is differentiating in portfolio, which means that we set up our large analytics cell, and a lot of trend spotting activities. And as Kunal was also saying, a lot of trend spotting in the area of health, hygiene, fitness, immunity, clean beauty is something that we really came up with, and we understood that products for a long period of time will be required to be sold digitally to the digital consumer in the changing eras, in the changing lifetime. So that was one. The second part was the distribution channel itself. That retail ordering will transforming it to telesales, direct to retailer, from basically stuff coming from factories direct to the retailer instead of going through distribution and all, because didn't really have the people to service all of this. Then we have our entire large space of DTC and how we go about that. And of course, then on e-commerce, trying different strategies on search, availability, larger packs, combos, etc. The third aspect that we focused on is expanding our marketing and advertising into digital channels, and that was a complete shift in terms of our spends on Facebook, Google, social media, influencers, affiliate marketing, SEO, CRM marketing. So broadly, these are the three areas which really, we focused on. Now, if I come to specifically say, for example, when we were setting up our DTC, the core question that was in front of us was about, do we do Marico.com? Do we set up brands? And we understood that it's important to stand for a cause, and it's important to stand for something which the consumers really want. And for example, Saffola being a health, a known, and actually a very a number one health brand in the space, we were able to come out with different products within that portfolio and then come up with that direct to consumer platform. Now, again, the direct to consumer platform that we did operationally and technologically, there were so many different things to consider. So whether we should do, how should we treat a bulky delivery? How should we treat intracity, intercity? How should we look at demand forecasting? How much of goods should we put in which warehouse? So there were so many different complexities. Should we have a common front end or a different front end? Should we, how the customer service and the logistics, etc., returns will work out? And there was these constraints were there while we were setting it up. But largely, I would say, that what worked for us, and not necessarily that everybody goes the same route, but what really worked for us is that having a technology that is common for all our DTC brands, which includes our food, clean beauty, hygiene, health brands, and it also means having one front end which is standing for the consumer, but at the back end, all the distribution, our warehousing, logistics, customer service is one common block, which actually helps us in economies of scale and benefiting from those economies of scale. And then of course a team. So in the last 1.5 2 years, we have set up a team in an FMCG company, which is completely from an e-commerce background, people from Myntra, Flipkart, Amazon. And these people are really now in-house building the product, building the digital brands, building the distribution. So, and of course, then the one of the most important part, and again, Kunal rightly said, that we focus on the product and the brand, but everything else that is more of outside of that scope, we really had great partnerships and great partnership support. For example, more than 50% of our goods are currently delivered with Shadowfax. And Shadowfax, Abhishek was kind enough to step in early and come in at a strategic level on how Shadowfax could partner and take this journey from 0 to 10x, and how really take this forward. So I think these important partnerships with different kinds of tech companies, with operation companies, with logistics companies has really helped us create this ecosystem which is scalable for the longer term.
Got
Yeah.
it. Got it. No, that's super insightful. In fact, we have Supadeep here as well. And I still remember that during the first lockdown in April 2020, ITC had partnered with every food delivery chain. They were on Apna Complex also. They were on MyGate, No Broker, Swiggy, Zomato, housing societies, everywhere. And it was a question that was on my mind even then, and now I have the opportunity to ask that one important aspect of building a D2C presence, as you rightly just said, are the back-end complexities are very different. One thing, for instance, I understand is that the flexible warehousing capability across the countries, demand prediction, delivery, everything is very different compared to how traditional retail works. So, Shubhadeep, how did ITC really deal with this change?
So what you referred to as those partnerships, they were early in the life cycle of this pandemic, right? And at that time, we were all struggling to figure out that the anxiety level of consumers were so high that we were not being able to access our brands and products. What are the different possible avenues that we have, right? So we started Store on Wheels almost in 7 working days. We got those Domino's partnership, etc., etc. Those were primarily from the view that who can take our product to the consumer. And there were some laws, rules, which were not laws, rules which were getting set up. And life was very different on ground, by the way,
Hmm.
from the rules that we saw or we read. So the objective was to figure out means to tackle those. Of course, supply chain was a big issue at that point in time for all possible reasons. There was lack of surety on every front, whether it's RMPM movement, whether it was interstate movement, and so on and so forth. Having said that, those were successful ventures given that context. A store on wheel, for example, started losing its relevance as the unlock stages happened, right? And
Hmm.
the store need not reach the society. However, what happened at that point in time was that we had already somehow serendipitously experimented with our or started to experiment with our D2C idea. And that time it was opened up for a beta testing with only the employees. But by September, October 2020 is when we relooked at the entire mechanism around this D2C. And of course, as Pratik mentioned, we heard Kunal also speak about it. The backbone of that is actually supply chain, especially when you are dealing with different kinds of products, right? FMCG, ITC, in the FMCG sector, actually, we are into roughly around 50 odd categories, right? From a pen and a scale and an eraser to matchbox and agarbatti to perfumes and creams to beverages and food product and so on and so forth, right? Lots of these categories actually require different kinds of treatment at the supply chain end, whether it's ambient to frozen to a cold chain, as in chocolate from Febel or MasterChef from Frozen, and so on and so forth. So all these had to be worked out, and again, not that because we are all here on a Red Seer event where we have shadow facts, but honestly, it was a great, um, it was a hand holding for us because none of us come from the background of a commerce. Of course, we handle huge warehouses, but the entire the process in which you deal with the D2C is very different when it comes to LMD, with the kind of warehousing, when you work with eaches rather than cartons, and so on and so forth, right? So there is absolutely a different ball game when you're looking at it. And of course, when you call out these words called estimates and what is going to be my sale next week or next month, they're an extremely difficult question to respond to. So create systems at the back end through analytics. How agile can we be on our minimum order quantity, etc. And depending on the velocity of sale, shelf life, certain products have very low shelf life with which we deal with in food. So those had to be considered. So yeah, so Aditi, there was lots of challenges. I don't think we have licked uh, everything. I think 50% of it maybe. We are yet to uncover a lot of other challenges, I'm sure, which we are going to face going forward. It is not even 12-month old in this venture. So yeah, it will be it's a lovely space to be in. Lot
Yeah.
of new learning.
Yeah, I have particularly seen ITC do a stellar job. I mean, I discovered you guys on Swiggy. I couldn't believe it. That we that ITC can serve on Swiggy, and then I thought that okay, this is
And
like
that
a
to Atta, remember? I
yes,
mean, I mean,
from Anand,
Okay,
I
yeah.
think last week I
Anyway,
ordered chocolates from there as well.
yeah.
And
So now we learned.
yeah,
Now we learned what not to. So you'll find me on Instamart, but you'll not find obviously listed on food
yeah, yeah,
delivery.
yeah, yeah. And it was amazing because, you could literally see the growth and you could say that, hey, they must have opened a cloud kitchen near Belandur for this service to be available here today. And even on the food side, I think you've done there are multiple different brands. I think Sunfeast has its own food presence, and uh, another
Yeah.
TCC.
So Aditi, what you're referring to is another D2C venture that we again started at almost the same time, which is about taking our brands, work with our own chefs from our hotels,
Right.
craft products,
Yes.
and bring it back to the consumers. Now, so we took two brands, Sunfeast Creations. So we created a brand called Sunfeast Creations, and the other one is called ITC MasterChef Creations.
Yeah.
One is in the space of bakery, um, and the other is in the space of taking ITC MasterChef frozen products and create meals and semi meals for people to pick up. Obviously, this becomes a new avenue for socializing your brands and building the equity of your brand, Sunfeast and MasterChef, right? It
Right.
is a business avenue, so it's a commerce avenue. It is an avenue to socialize your brands, to give a new meaning system to your brand universe, to create new assets for the brand when you're building equity of your brand. So when we say D2C, it is beyond commerce, right?
Right.
Your packet of atta can be there on any other e-commerce platform, right? So why a D2C should be the larger question. So
Right.
does Ashirvad or EP or Mom's Magic or Dark Fantasy, do they need to be sold out of an itcstore.in? Need not,
Hmm.
right? But then what is the purpose of that venture is the larger question. So your Dark Fantasy, your Sunfeast Creations and MasterChef Creation is one part of that larger equity building of brands, which has a long-term value attached to it, beyond giving just fresh products, right, to
Got it.
consumers.
Got it. Got it. Got it. No, that is super insightful. Moving on, I think there's another topic that I would love to touch upon, which is a key metric that impacts consumer buying behavior. And I think Abhishek mentioned that at the very fag end of his session as well, which was the speed of delivery. Uh, I'm curious to understand, Vijendra, like in Apollo Pharmacy, like how has pharma delivery sort of emerged in the last 18 months? What sort of trends have you seen from same day to same hour to next day? What is the consumer saying? You're on mute.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Right. So I would begin by saying that next day is too late, right? Within the same day, now we have, different categories. Is it express, which is 2 hours, up to 4 hours, 2 to 4 hours, and then, beyond that, right? And our aspiration is to deliver 95% of our orders within 2 to 4 hours, right? That's what and we are already, 80% there. So we already deliver, majority of our orders within that time frame, but we want to get to 95%. This is, eventually an exercise in predicting demand, right? We already, sorry, someone said voice is breaking. Can you guys hear me clearly?
I
Yeah,
can.
yeah, we can.
Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah,
basically,
yeah.
what we've seen is that your conversion on the cart goes up significantly if you have express delivery, right? And um, as everyone else, of course, Shadowfax is our partner for express delivery. But yeah, so conversion goes up, and it has much better metrics in terms of cancellations and returns, etc. when you do express delivery, and people are much happier, right? And that's where we want to do like 95% of our orders in 2 to 4 hours. And we have seen good success. As I said, we are already doing majority of those there, and this is mostly done in the metros right now. That is more because I think we are the only player who can actually do this in India right now, and we've only done this in the metros. The next stop would be the cities beyond that. So I think that's more when we get there and when we do this. But yes, it takes a lot of planning in terms of you need to predict the demand of what the customer is going to order, right? If you want to deliver it in 2 hours, right?
Right.
And that's the secret sauce behind it. And then once you know that okay, the customer is going to order this, or at least some estimate around this, and then if you have that item available within a 5 to 10 kilometer radius of the customer, right? And once they place the order, then you have to have the logistical wherewithal to deliver it as well, deliver on the promise of 2 hours, right? And I think so. The way we do this right now is we try and predict the demand, and then make sure that the items are available, where they need to be available, and then we have Shadowfax as our partner and some delivery capability on our side as well to fulfill this promise. But yes, I think for us the key is that people like fast delivery, and in my mind, next day is too late anyway, at least for medicines.
Got it. Got it. So, and has that changed during the pandemic, or was that something that was a user insight always?
Um, so it it hasn't really changed. It just scaled up for us. Like
Okay.
during the pandemic second wave, we had like 5-6x growth in 1 week,
Hmm.
right? So that just made a lot more people try our platform and get the service. Of course, we were not able to fulfill everyone's demand during that time. It was basically a big challenge for the delivery side as well, right? To see the kind of growth like 6x in 6 days is you can't really do that, right? So I think the pandemic just gave it scale, but the um, basically the fact that this will help us have better conversion and was delightful for customers was always was always true. That metric hasn't changed much.
Got it. And when you say that conversions are better with same day or a few hours delivery, uh, can you give us some color on the kind of conversions or numbers you are talking about, just to give our listeners a little bit of an idea of the impact that speed has on deliveries?
I would say 20 to 30% better conversion
20 to 30% better conversion.
against your baseline. 20 to 30% better conversion.
Got it. Got it. And you also mentioned that there's a question out here that you're in metros today. There's a question here from our audience which is saying that is Apollo Pharmacy doing delivery into rural places within a radius of 10 kilometers? Would you want to take that?
So see, we have 4,000 plus pharmacies across like 100 plus cities in India, right?
Hmm.
Um, we have not started the express delivery in all places. Right now, our focus is on the top, 10 cities or so, 10, 12 cities in India, where so it's not just the Apollo pharmacy that has to be present to fulfill this promise, right? You have to have the logistical, wherewithal as well to be able to do this, because the pharmacy will not deliver by itself, right? And they can deliver a few orders, but if you really need this to scale, then you need a full delivery capability behind it, right? And I think I have to discuss with Abhishek when he can help us build this in more cities, right? Yeah, and that's how, I mean, I think delivery doesn't scale that fast. So it will take us some time, but I think we're seeing very good results in the top 10, 12 cities, and we'll expand that to 20 and then to 50 so on.
Got it, got it. That is super helpful. I'll move on to Abhishek, and I'm curious because he is in a business which is dominated by PNGs and the Johnsons and Johnsons of the world. uh, how did you guys find your edge, and like how do you believe that new age brands can do you think that new age brands can understand the pulse of the consumer better than the legacy brands? And yeah, we have both sides here, so tread carefully, but would love to sort of get, because that's something that we hear from a lot of direct to consumer brands, that their pulse on the market is much faster and better. So would sort of love to get your insights. And how did you build a brand which is so complex as a problem for from a marketing point of view as well?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Aditi, and thanks for having us on the panel. I think that's a good question, actually. I guess my first response is, look, first of all, we have a lot of respect for folks like P&G and J&J's. They've done this over so many years, and obviously they're big brands, and they're really strong at what they do. I think our approach is a little bit different in the sense that first of all, we're a digital first brand. We're born in the online world. We're a direct to consumer brand in the true sense, in the sense that most of our sales come through our own platform. So our focus, Aditi, has always been on going really deep in terms of consumer needs. Really going right from product development to whether it's pricing or anything that is related to working with our consumers. We actually co-create a lot of that with our consumers. So for us, we're talking about a little bit on the pulse of customers and consumers. Look, we interact with customers, hundreds of thousands of customers on a daily basis, right? Because we have a very large community of women who we interact with, and we often get these sort of responses. Just to give you a little bit of a data point, last time we ran a campaign on something related to an NPD, we ran a survey. And within 24 hours, we had 20 to 30, we actually had nearly 30,000 responses, right? So that gives you a sense that, in terms of the, kind of speed with which we can operate as far as getting consumer insights is concerned. And then, of course, it depends on how we take those insights and then make something out of it. I think the other point in terms of differentiation or, what we do is we strongly believe experience is really critical. And I think a lot of folks have already talked about this. And as Shubhadeep said, it's a little bit of a different ball game as far as sort of thinking about online versus offline. And I think one of the things we do really focus on is in terms of right from product to packaging to the delivery experience. We work very closely with Shadowfax, for example. We look at all of that in terms of how do we make that experience superior for the customers. So it's just constantly working on that, taking the feedback, and then reworking on it. So the speed with which we sort of turn that around is sort of one of the things that we are able to is one of our fortes, I suppose, right? So to speak.
Got it, got it. And is this a place where content marketing or content creation has stood out for you, or what's your view on that?
No, absolutely. I think Kunal talked about this earlier, but I think one of the things that's really important in our direct-to-consumer brand is how do you build a strong community, and how do you build content that's relevant to your consumers, right? So one of our things, part of our vision is really to be able to build a very holistic brand, right? Which means that we always say that we're not solving for, we're not selling pads, we're solving for periods, and that's a very different perspective, because then you're thinking not just about selling the product, but you're still thinking about how do you educate consumers on different aspects? What are they actually going through? How do you give them the right sort of support, whether it's content or whether it's through community, to be able to support customers, right? A simple case in point could be a teenager going through puberty, right? Or a woman who's just about to enter menopause. How do you actually give them the right sort of content and the right kind of support, whether it's through content or whether it's through community as well. Yeah.
Got it, got it, got it. And it's I would like to open this question to anyone who would want to take it. But it's been documented that traditional consumer brands, like, they typically took decades to reach like a 500 crore milestone. And I mean, they invested a lot of capital, they built a lot of capabilities, distribution. Revlon, I think, took about 20 years to reach 100 crores. And I think Lotus Herbal took around 19 years. Bikaji Foods took some 21 years to reach that milestone. we're now seeing consumer brands actually go there at a much more accelerated pace. And maybe it is maybe consumer brands, the direct to consumer brands or the internet first brands are one of those. But I would like to understand from both sides of the panel. At one, do you see your own metrics getting accelerated because of online, or what is your take on how the adoption in online has been? I can see Shubhadeep just wanting to answer this question, so
No,
I'm
no, not that way. I said maybe I'll go in first.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, See, I think we have been in the FMCG industry for roughly now close to 2 decades. Yeah, just about there. And that uh, gave us around 15,000 crore of business. So when you're talking about brands taking a lot of time, I think uh, the the definition of time has altered over time. Uh, However, what has got democratized are various aspects of the business. Right? For example, we are talking about access of
Hmm.
brands and products. Right? This is e-commerce effectively is the access part of the story. That's why we saw some shifts in purchases. Today, e-commerce, I think, accounts for us roughly 11-12% of our total business in the metro cities.
Hmm.
Um, so is this a completely new business that we never had? Or is this a shift from channel A to channel B? It's a combination of both.
Hmm.
Um, the question is that are there any new levers of growth which are getting unearthed through these tech enablement?
Hmm.
I mean, if you take these are enablers, then what is it enabling? It is enabling in generating a new experience for the consumers. Keep consumers at the core, because
Right.
it helps you to understand the consumer needs now broken up into micro segments, and hence construct products and services according to that. It helps you be far more agile in taking decisions. So for example, yesteryears we would launch in a state, wait for 4 months for distribution to ramp up. Then you have media. Then we will struggle to figure out attribution. Ki, acha, for distribution, what happened? For media input, what happened? Today, attributions becomes easier. So you see what has happened. What has happened is effectively your decision making has become faster, more precise, and you have been able to provide those outcomes, basis those outcome solutions and services to consumers.
Right.
Which, so in totality, it is a win-win for everybody. So hence maybe the velocity of growth is that unfortunately I mean, things are not looking that buoyant this financial year for sure for us and for the large part of FMCG sector. Unlike last year, we'll see how it goes. Sentiments are also not too
Hmm.
positive. So we'll see all of that, how it goes. But if you look at it from a very long-term perspective and ignore this period, hopefully, then it are these kinds of stuff are actually what is enabling your growth trajectory at an overall industry level. So
Got
it's
it.
not about old brands or new brands.
Yeah, I like how I'm a
I
little
second
scared.
that actually.
Yeah, yeah. I'm scared of using the word legacy brands in this forum. How we casually use them in our stories. But yeah, yes, Pratik, go please go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm saying that I second most of what Shubhadeep said. And you go back to what I initially said that, we are transforming digitally in three ways. One is portfolio, second is marketing channels, and third is distribution channels. So if you look at it from that point of view, trend spotting and creation of brands, getting them to the market is much faster now, and that wasn't there earlier. Second is distributing those brands means that getting it from the warehouse to the consumer is through e-commerce, through these fast distribution channels. And third is marketing itself. Instead of TV advertising, now we are like in the age of pay-per-click marketing. So all of these three have really changed the pace of everything in
Hmm.
terms of you know uh, increasing the pace of business, you know how fast you can go from an X to a 2x, 5x, and then 10x. And I think it is democratized. So people within the existing FMCG companies or outside of that both have the same level playing field, and that is why we can see winners in both, right? So that's my take on that.
Got it, got it. And also would like to understand from either one of you, when you're sort of looking at, some of these transformations happening on the ground, for your teams, how has that sort of been? Because it's a very different problem that the teams on the ground are now solving for, and maybe some of them are different teams, but some of them there will be an overlap, at least a little bit on the supply chain front. How has that transition sort of been for Marico or ITC?
Pratik, you want to go in first?
So Shubhadeep, I think
Sure,
Shubhadeep, you
sure.
can
I
take
can
it.
go in.
Yeah,
I can go in. I can go in. So, Aditi, I
yeah,
think the
yeah.
transformation has been a really sharp learning curve. Internally, we never had. So, look, let's break this transformation into parts. There's a new tech world that we got used to or got um, exposed to,
Hmm.
a new tech stack. Um, so that's one part. Then there is this entire aspect of people and skilling. I think that's a big space. Forget about only D2C and this narrow lens that we are using. If you just expand the horizon, Pratik touched upon digital marketing in a big way. Digitization and digital marketing is translating into a lot of skill, re-looking at people and skill. And I think that talent, acquiring right talent, managing right talent, is a big challenge, and that is a big key. You heard Pratik talk about he's got a lot of people from the existing industry, to manage this part of the business, right? So getting the right talent and skilling up some set of your own people towards that direction from a sustainable perspective becomes critical for these new areas where all of us are going into, right? Go back 10 years, did we know a lot about how to advertise on Facebook, on Instagram? No, we have playbooks now, right?
Right.
So now taking D2C is a new space that you have walked into. There will be lots of, so from a people perspective, there is I think that's a big space that we need to constantly be looking at. Tech is another space. Supply chain, you have great partners. So an evolving partner ecosystem around you is also very, very critical for the success factor to continue. And you have different kinds of partners in this ecosystem. It's a cluster of partnerships. So I think these three, if you really ask me, would be three big verticals. Pratik. Oops. I think Pratik is
Yeah.
frozen.
Yeah, I can't. But yeah, but, you're absolutely right. I think there's an ecosystem which is now getting matured enough to be able to take that demand, which was
Maturing, Aditi.
yeah.
Not so soon to say matured.
Well, in
We really don't
e-commerce,
know what is
yeah,
matured.
yeah,
What is the definition of maturity?
right,
Right. So,
right, fair, fair, okay. But for me, I think when I've seen how deliveries for e-commerce versus deliveries for everything else that had to be built, there have been billion-dollar companies that have been built on supply chain for e-commerce, and yeah,
so
just yeah,
again, Aditi, we need to, when you look at it from a brand.com or a D2C, from a brand window, we need to define what is the role that it has in the business. Are
hmm,
we in the business of creating another marketplace, or are we in the business of creating brand experiences
right,
and services around brand experience? If we are clear about that and we design ourselves to that, I think that's, so you heard Kunal talk about, is there a consumer problem that I'm addressing through this D2C, or is
right,
it my problem that I'm trying to address only, right?
yeah,
I
yeah,
might say, okay, you know what, I don't think people know Classmate and Ashirwad comes from the same company. I have a business problem to make people aware. Is that a problem that I'm trying to address? Or is there really freshly grounded atta or spices or fresh food products or customized atta Are there any other need that I'm trying to solve
Hmm.
for?
Yeah, got it. Got it. All
I'm
right.
also not sure. I think medicine needs immediate delivery. I'm not sure that holds true for all categories.
Right.
That you need to have a 2-hour delivery. Is it okay enough to be delivered in 24 hours or on the same day? I
Right.
think that's something we need to also understand. Uh, I think the jury is still out on that. That does every category need to go through this, or is it a burden that we are forcefully putting on ourselves?
Fair. Fair. Uh, but are you, Abhishek? Actually, maybe you would have a lot more insight on this as well. Given that you're in this space, are you seeing consumers trading? I mean, we're in such a terrible economy that I think it sounds like a silly question at this point. But I'll still ask: are you seeing that there is an intent, at least for consumers, to trade up if they see value in it? This, because this is something that brands are talking about as well, and
Yeah.
uh, I get a mixed sentiment, because I think that who's buying, and then I see the numbers and people are buying, and at least the people who are online,
Yeah,
and
no, absolutely. I agree with that, Aditi. I actually think that I think what consumers really look for, and certainly that's been our experience, is value for money, right? So I think price is a little bit less relevant. I think it's really value for money, and it's already really up to the brand in terms of how they can communicate that, right? I think it really comes down to how you're able to articulate the value proposition, and I think that's really been our focus, for example, in terms of trying to do that. So hope that answers your question. But
yeah,
also to add that perspective, I think to what Shubhadeep and I think Prateek talked about, I think the point is really, I think as they said, it's really speed and time to market, right? And I also think that, I just look at it as consumer brands, whether it's sort of, depending on where you were sort of, where you made that, where you started the journey. But I certainly think that a lot of barriers have been broken, right? In the last, I would say in the last 10 years, and especially in the last 5 years, I would say that in terms of the infrastructure, whether it's related to marketing or delivery or even product development, right? So, for example, with marketing, the fact that you could just go to a digital marketing channel, use influencers to be able to do that. On delivery, for example, we, as I said, we work closely with Shadowfax. Just the whole agenda on speed and reliability, how you do it. And last but not the least, in terms of product development, how do you improve the cycles, that you have to take to the iterations to get your product right? I think that's definitely changed, and I believe strongly that that will help accelerate the journey, not just for digitally native or digital first brands such as us, but also for the likes of an ITC or HUL or anyone else for that matter, right? So I strongly believe that to be the case. Yeah.
got it, got it, got it. I think we're out of time now. I've already exceeded by 5 minutes. Thank you, everyone. I don't see any other questions from the audience. Uh, mm, is Mariko planning to enter the snack food? I don't think this is relevant, at least for this forum. But thank you, everyone. Thank you for taking our time. Would love to connect with all of you offline as well, and hopefully at some point see all of you in person. Stay safe, and yeah, thank you for taking our time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Nice,
Thank you so
great
much.
session.